It is just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Jacob Meltzer. Thanks so much for coming by the house.
Absolutely.
When I was a little, this is going to be an embarrassing podcast because a bald man's going to podcast someone and keep it cut. But you know, when I was little, my dad owned a Sonic drive-in. And his vacations, there was only two themes to all of our family vacations. He'd pile me and my 5 sisters in a station wagon. And we went to every amusement park, every Six Flags over anything. And he toured, companies gave any tours, like Budweiser beer, or Chevy cars and trucks, and Coors beer. And, I just found it so fascinating. And I actually think it's fascinating in Ahwatukee to, you drive by and you see all these businesses, and you just want to know the story behind the business. So tell us your story. How did you get to Ahwatukee? How did you get it, keep it cut? Tell us your journey.
Yeah, it's been a long journey. So it's myself and I have a business partner as well. And we've been friends since 6th grade. So we grew up together. We went to elementary, middle school, high school together.
And where was that?
And that was in Medical Lake, Washington. So it's a real small town. Medical Lake.
Medical Lake, Washington.
So it's about 15 minutes from Spokane, which is right on the Washington-Idaho border.
Okay, yeah.
And Medical Lake
the other side of the Cascades.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. And it used to be a really destination spot back in the day. People would come from all over. There was some hotels that were built up in Medical Lake because they believed the lake there had medicinal properties. So they would even ship out the mud from Medical Lake, and they would sell it.
Are you serious?
And then
when you were little?
Before me, way before.
Oh,
me.
way before. Okay, way back.
And then it became a little bit overpopulated. They had a couple hotel fires, and now it's just a quaint little town where we grew up.
Well, when I was a senior in high school, I graduated in high school in 1980, they would charter a 747 and fill it up with all boys from all the Catholic schools around to Fatima, because it was worth it to the Catholic Church, because they'd fly to Lisbon, Portugal, and you'd stay at this monastery in Fatima, because every year they did that, they could convince at least 10 boys not to fly back and be priests. So it was worth the whole, it was a very, I think, and they would talk about it year after year, like, well, last year we got 8, the year before we got 11, but I mean, they knew exactly what they were doing. But they had that miracle water, and I'll never forget, it was so funny. The priest said, don't touch or drink the miracle water. If you would really go to get really, really sick. And I thought, well, that doesn't make sense. How could it be miracle water? How could you get sick from drinking miracle water? But that was that was in 1980. That was just, 37 years ago? People still believe that?
Yeah.
So I wonder, do they still believe it today up there?
No. Now it's just a recreational lake. People swim and, boat, just rowboats, and that's a real small lake.
Well, they still believe it in Catholics, because have you ever been to Lourdes in France?
I have not.
That Lourdes is another Catholic destination deal, and sick people come from all over the world to be dunked in that water. But anyway, I'm sorry, we got on.
No, that's fine.
So what was the name? Medical Lake. Medical Lake. And then you and your partner went to high school, grew up.
Yep. And then we both went to college together for a year at Western Washington University, which is north of Seattle by about an hour and a half, right before you hit the Canadian border. So we did a year there together, and then he actually went off and he joined the Air National Guard because he wanted a way to pay for school, so he did that. And I kept working in the university or studying there. So I actually finished my degree in biology, and then he went back a couple years later and he finished his degree. He moved to Phoenix with his wife to work at Vanguard doing investments, and I moved to Illinois to actually do student housing, so I actually ran dorms for a small private university there in central Illinois. So we were doing two very different things, two very different
Central Illinois, like Effingham?
Bloomington.
Okay.
Yeah, Bloomington and Normal. So I worked at Illinois Wesleyan University.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a great little school, great town, just surrounded by cornfields, 2 hours every direction. 2 hours to Chicago, 2 hours to St. Louis, 2 hours to Indianapolis, corn everywhere.
Yeah.
And so then he called me up, we were 24, and he said, we talked about opening a business together. He's like, I'm ready to go, I want to do it now. Are you in or you out? And I was like, I don't know, I'm in Illinois, you're in Phoenix, how are we going to make that work? I was like, I have no desire to move to Phoenix. Zero desire. I've been here a couple times and visited. Everything hurts in Phoenix. The sun hurts, the rock hurt, the cactus hurts. I mountain biked at the time, so I remember crashing down here, and just everything was painful. And he goes, yeah, no problem. Let's open a business, and I'll do everything down here. You just do your part from up there, and we'll make a run of it. So at that point, we actually opened a Liberty Tax Service franchise because it was low capital to get into. It was an interesting business.
Will you send me that Liberty Tax franchise?
Yeah, Liberty Tax Service. So they're the ones that have
Is that like an H&R Block?
Yeah, so they're the ones that have the Statue of Liberty sign spinners and waivers out there every tax season, if you've seen those. Yeah, so it's the number 3 or number 2, I think, now tax business in the country.
Behind H&R?
Behind H&R.
I went to dental school in Kansas City, and that's where that was founded.
Huh.
Because I remember on the drive to one of my friend's house, you drive by his house. But anyway.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we started that. It went awful the first year. We didn't know what we were doing. And then after that, I moved down here to help out with the tax business. And I worked for the university at Arizona State. So I still did dorm management there, so oversaw the students. Kind of half babysitting, half property management. And then from there, we did that for about 6 years. And we finally got our feet under us. We're all right, it's running, it's smooth, it's going. But we were tired of the franchise model. We wanted to do something of our own. And so we looked around and said, well, what should we do? We loved the membership concept that was coming out. Everyone was doing the Dollar Shave Club, and you have all the different memberships, the Netflix and the Hulus. We said, how could we do memberships but apply it to a different industry that's not being done yet? And so we really just sat down one morning, went through from morning till night. What do we do first when you wake up? What do you do second when you wake up? And finally we hit haircuts, and we're like, oh, that could work. So we just gave it a shot. We went for it. So it wasn't something
So this is your own franchise then?
It's not a franchise yet. Maybe we'll do that eventually. But yeah, just our own concept.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And so how does the concept work?
Yeah. So clients who come in, they sign up. They can either just get a haircut, so that's $19 just for a basic haircut, or they can sign up for a membership, and it's $29 a month. Fills their account on their credit card or debit card, just like any other Netflix would.
How much a month?
$29.
$29 a month.
And then they can come in for as many haircuts as they want. It's unlimited. You can come in every 2 days if you want. You can come in every day if you want to. Unlimited, $29.
And you started it where?
So we started in Phoenix, in the Arcadia area.
Okay, that's Arcadia. Is that the old Phoenix area?
I'm not sure
I know there's one area where you got the street signs. Then they have a third one on top, like historic district or something. Or
it's a district. I don't know if it's considered a historic district or not.
Okay,
but it is. So
it's older homes.
Yeah,
or not really.
There's some. A lot of them are 40s and 50s homes.
Okay,
I'm not sure how much further they go back in that area.
So you started one in Arcadia.
And then we just went forward. Said, "Oh, let's give it a shot. Let's see if people like it." And so after about a year, it seemed like it was picking up traction. Okay, people like this. Let's go ahead and see if it'll work other places in town. Make sure this isn't just a unicorn. So 2 years ago, we opened one in Ahwatukee and one in Tempe.
And where's your one in Ahwatukee?
40th Street and Chandler Boulevard.
And so you're right. Here's Trader Joe's. So where would you be, to the south or?
We're going to be to the north of Trader Joe's, right next to the McDonald's.
Okay, between Trader Joe's and McDonald's?
So, you pull off Chandler and we're right there.
Now, when you drive down Chandler, can you see it, or do you kind of have to pull in?
Yeah, it's tucked in a little bit. So we have a sign on the monument sign, but really you have to drive in about...
And you've been there 2 years?
2 years now.
And then where's the one in Tempe?
And then Tempe's at Rural and Baseline, so just south of the 60 on Rural Road. So there's a Whole Foods there, and we're right next to Whole Foods.
So if you had a membership in Ahwatukee, but say you worked in Tempe or downtown Phoenix, could your membership apply to all three, or is it
you can go to anyone you want.
Go to anyone you want.
Yeah. And so that was the advantage. I mean, having a membership at one location is great, but being able to have multiple locations to go to, I mean, that value proposition goes way up at that point. And then we're actually we're just signing leases right now for 3 more spots that will open up in the next 12 months.
Nice.
So we're pretty excited.
Nice.
I think it's a really good time.
So, but you're a biologist, and your partner is finance. Do either of you cut hair?
Neither of us cut hair. Yeah.
Really?
He actually, right now, he's still working full-time in New York, there with his wife for her medical residency. So he works for JetBlue doing rate analysis for their airline tickets. So he sets pricing for their tickets.
And do you work now?
I don't now. I was lucky enough. So 2 years ago, I left my job to just do Keep a Cut full-time. Once we decided we were going to branch out to the 2 new stores, we decided it was time to invest a little bit more time in it.
So the Tukey store's been here 2 years, and Arcadia's been here 3?
4.
4? And now you're going to go to 4 more locations. You're going to 1, then you added 2, and now you added 4?
We're going to add 3 more.
Yeah, so you added 1, you had 1, then 2. Now you're going to add 3.
Yep.
And then that works at 4?
Yeah.
So, I mean, are you doing a geometric expansion? Is that...
We're doing it as fast as we can get money and open responsibly. You know, as soon as we're comfortable that things are stable, then we went out and looked for bank financing and said, okay, how much financing will you give us? and they seemed comfortable with 3, so we said we'll take it. We'll trick you into 3. Maybe next time we can trick you into 4 or 5.
Nice. So what are those? What is it? A subscription model? What is it called when Netflix dings your credit card every month for $10? What kind of business model is that called?
It's a recurring membership model, or a SaaS model is what it's known as. I can't remember exactly what that stands for. It's
really interesting because so many businesses they always want new customers, mm-hmm. and it's like if you were Chase or American Airlines or Southwest Airlines, I mean everyone's flown you once at Southwest Airlines. Everybody's gone to Disneyland once.
Right.
The best businesses aren't the ones that know how to acquire a new customer. The best businesses are the ones that learn how to keep a customer.
Right.
And a subscription model like Netflix. And I was at Lifetime, and so many of those people tell you at Lifetime, like, the average person that goes to any gym will give them their reoccurring credit card model. Mm-hmm. And after 8 months, they quit going, but they don't unhook their credit card for 40 months.
Yeah.
Netflix, I mean, I can't tell you how many months. I have 2 on my phone for music. What is it, Spotify and...
Pandora, maybe?
Yeah, Spotify and Pandora. I don't think I've ever listened to them in years. In fact, that should be my deal today. Because that's the rage of the future. I mean...
It is, because you can, like you said, it's so expensive to get new clients.
Right.
We work so hard to get it. But what if we can just retain the ones we have? And with men, oftentimes for them, half the men are pretty loyal. They're going to go back to their same stylist. The other half, it's convenience-based. Where am I close to? What's the cheapest? I'm on my way to work and I need a haircut, or I might have a meeting, or this or that. So for us to be able to take those and say, do all your haircuts with us. We'll give you a price break, but do all your haircuts with us. So it's a win for them, and it's a win for us.
I don't have hair, so I don't really know if that's you said a regular cut is 19.
19.
Or you can pay $29 a month.
Correct.
So that means the only way that would work is if you needed 2 haircuts a month.
Yeah, at least 2.
So
for some folks,
do most guys need 2 haircuts a month?
Anyone who's on the membership model, for like instance, my hair, like I'm overdue for a haircut. I need to get mine cut at least every 2 weeks. Usually I'll do a cut-in part here where it's a little more divided. You can't even see that right now because it's been about 2.5, 3 weeks. And so, yeah, if you go in, we have guys who come in every 4 days. It's probably our most common.
Really?
And then our most, regular people are going to be a week or every 2 weeks. They come in just like clock.
So is that guy coming in every 4 days? Is he a little not right in the head?
No, he just really likes the real tight cut and just likes to keep it clean.
Yeah.
The downside with it, though, is you never get complimented on your haircut anymore being a fresh new haircut because it always looks good all the time. It used to be I'd go 6 weeks to get my haircut and people say, oh, you just got your haircut. It looks great. Now, I don't get the compliment on a new haircut. I just get compliments on my regular haircut.
Huh. So now, so you just said it's all men.
Mostly men. We have some women who come in, women who have short haircuts, who need that regular maintenance, or they just need simple trims.
What percent of your
99% men.
99% of your memberships are men?
Yeah. So we'll have
I wonder if men and women also, I wonder if they have different needs when they get their hair done.
Sure. I mean, women, when they come in, they sometimes are getting color, full color. We don't do any color. We're just simple cuts. Or they're doing styling. So all of my staff can do women's haircuts. They were all trained in cosmetology.
So they are cosmetologists?
Most of them, yeah. We have a couple barbers on staff. We hold both licenses.
So there's a separate license. You can be a licensed barber? Correct. Or a licensed cosmetologist?
Correct.
Explain that. Well, what's about that? There might be some kids at Mountain Point or, there might be some kids in high school thinking about this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great career. So barbering, it takes less classwork time, which is the advantage to it, but you're focused only on men's hair. Or simple women's cuts. If you switch over to cosmetologist, now you're talking someone with a cosmetologist license can cut hair, they can color, they can do nails, waxing. So it's the full gamut of services that you would see at any type of women's salon. They can do all of those things. So it's kind of an all or none. You either do just men's hair with barbering, or you do everything with cosmetology.
So how long does it take to be a barber?
That's a good question. I believe it's 700 hours for barbering.
700 hours?
Yeah,
and how many...
I think it's about double that for cosmetology.
And 1,400 for cosmetology?
Yeah.
And in months, how long does that usually take?
That's a great question. I'm not sure.
Yeah. But it's funny because whether you're a dentist or you cut hair or you're a restaurant, the thing the government is always all concerned about, what do those 3 things have in common, is infection. Mm-hmm. They want the restaurant to be cleaning the utensils.
Yep.
And they don't want people doing your nails and cutting your hair and all that. So basically just hygiene, sanitation, sterilizing. That's what because the government doesn't care how you cut your hair.
No.
And they don't care what you serve for dinner at your restaurant. They just don't want the herd of Homo sapiens to get all sick and ill and at the hospital and die. So.
Exactly, and that's where they come in when they inspect our stores. They're looking for those same things. Are you cleaning up the hair? Are you disinfecting your tools between every client?
Yeah.
Are you keeping things clean so that you don't have any infectious disease that passes through?
And you know what? Back in the old days, a lot of hospitals would think about. We had like this people, and the one thing they had in common is they had, they all said they ordered pizza or this or that, or they went to this dentist. But now it's, oh my God, it's super sophisticated. There was a dentist in Tulsa that wasn't cleaning his instruments. I mean, they can take the infection that you got and know that you didn't get it from 3 other sources. I mean, it's like a crime scene.
Right.
And so I think in the future, people will be saying, oh, this came from this restaurant on Thursday night. Mm-hmm. This finger infection came from this mani-pedi at this salon. So I think infection control will be more serious. Yeah. So what would you say to somebody who's listening to this and saying, I hate my job. It's a 9 to 5. I got an hour commute to downtown Phoenix every day. I hate the deal. You've been through 2 franchises. You started. So how did you? Is there a website for franchises, or how did you find LibertyTax.com? And would you do that one again? Mm-hmm. And was Keep It Cut a franchise, or you just started your own?
It wasn't. Yeah, we started ourselves.
God, that is so cool.
Franchise was great. I mean, it gave us. We were 24. We had no idea about business. Neither of our parents were.
You hear that, Ryan? 24. You have no idea about anything. No,
we didn't know anything. So the reason we went franchise route was to say, well, let's go into a model that's been proven. Let's learn off of somebody else's coattails. They've already done the hard work. Let's see if that works. We found it to be a little harder than we thought even doing that, because you still have all the variables that pop up in your own decision making. But it was a great way to start. We learned a lot from Liberty. They have, I think, a really robust marketing model. They do and focus a lot on guerrilla marketing. So your non-billboards, your non-radio ads, what can you do that's ground level? How do you go out and reach the masses by going door-to-door to businesses, by having a sign waiver on the corner, by getting involved in parades and local events?
Explain what guerrilla marketing is.
So guerrilla marketing is anything that's non-mass media. So a billboard would not be guerrilla marketing because you're paying a lot of money for this one big mass media. Guerrilla marketing is kind of ground level, street level marketing. So you're really going door to door, talking to people, building relationships, being a part of the community.
And that's usually more effective, isn't it?
It can be, depending on your business. When you have a lower budget, it's more effective because it's more time-based. So I could spend all day long doing the marketing. It's not going to cost me another $1 if it's just my time, as opposed to having to go out and pay for a billboard, which might be $3,000-$4,000 a month. So it can be more effective. So for us as a small business,
is it hard to be second fiddle to like an H&R Block? I mean, is it hard to be in a business when you have a dominant player like that, or is it actually a good thing?
It's actually the opposite. When you do the Liberties, you actually want to be as close as you can to the H&R Block because they are the big players. So they're going to spend all the money on the advertising, bring people to your corner, and then you can just take your section of that. And we had a really strong brand, so people would come and they would see us, equal to an H&R Block. But oftentimes we could plug out a little bit more customer service because we were a franchise model, so we cared a little bit more about our client base, I feel like, than sometimes a corporate model does. So I didn't feel like there was a challenge at all. I think it was... Because
I've seen in some industries where if some player is really, really big and you're really small, all the upset customers, you see it on Facebook where people say, I'll never fly United again, or well, if you say you're never going to fly United again, that means that you're going to go somewhere else.
Right.
So I didn't know if H&R Block had, if that was...
Exactly, yeah. We'd get some defectors from H&R Block who would come over to us and say, I went there, had a bad experience, what can you guys do for me? And I'm sure we had people went the other way.
There's this one in dental supplies. Uh-huh. There's 2 businesses that each have almost a quarter of the market each. And there was this real little company, and he said to me one time, he says, "What would you recommend? How should I advertise?" And I said, "Just advertise that you're not them. Put your face out there." I said, "They got so many upset customers. If you just focus on everybody they pissed off, you'd be really, really busy."
Exactly.
So what? I've heard other bad things about franchises, like I think the most recurring one I say is that you buy this franchise, you think it's all good, but you have to buy all your supplies for them, like Subway. So you have to buy your napkins, your cups, your straws, and you're not really getting it like you could get your napkins and straws at Costco.
Right.
And that they kind of ding you, a lot of different ways. Did you find it profitable owning a Liberty tax deal? Did you make money?
It was challenging. At the end, we were making some money. Overall, we broke even from our whole experience. More so, though, I don't think that was necessarily the Liberty model. I think it was our mistakes. So, for instance...
You're a humble guy.
I think... well, we learned from that, and hopefully we're doing well because of that. But we went into a location that wasn't the ideal location for a tax office. We thought it was, and then once we learned our market base a little bit more, we said, we should have been 3 miles down the road. So there's little details that we just didn't quite hone in on, that if we had listened a little bit more, I think we weren't as humble when we were 24. And we thought,
right.
We know better. We can do it better. They told us we should go here, but we'll go over here, This has got to be the spot. And so...
so you're saying demographics matter?
Demographics may not matter for a tax office. But for the biggest part...
And what are the demographics for a tax office? I mean...
For like a Liberty and H&R Block, they're going low to middle income. That's your group, because your high income is going to go to a CPA or someone with maybe more experience, more credentialing. Because with a Liberty or a H&R, any tax office like that, when we started, there wasn't even a certification process. Anyone could walk off the street, walk into that store and do taxes as long as they thought they knew what they were doing. So we'd hold a tax school and we do a lot of training on it. But there wasn't a lot of certification. So if you get to more complex...
But now there's certification?
Now they have a basic certification for the IRS. It's still pretty simple. It doesn't require a strong expertise. So low to middle income. And one of the reasons we got out of the tax office is that we felt like it preyed a little bit on the low income. Because what would happen is that you'd have low income folks who get earned income credit, which essentially is a refundable tax credit, which means that even if you didn't owe any taxes, you would still get this credit back for being below a certain income level and having, it kind of ranges depending on how many kids you have, how much you would get back. So these folks might be getting really big refunds, and so in the tax model, they would be charged more for that earned income credit filing. And then your person who's making a higher income, because they owe taxes, they're not as excited about paying a fee to you, because everything they pay the IRS, now they have to pay you. They oftentimes will get charged a little bit less because they're more sensitive to the price. And so it felt a little predatory that they were preying more on the low-income folks because they weren't as price-sensitive. And so that was one of the reasons we got out of the business. It just didn't feel comfortable to us. And then
so you were in business and you had morals and ethics?
Right, exactly.
Gosh, nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. God, that just made me think of how many hurt feelings I have with that bank scandal where they opened up all those accounts on people.
Right.
And all those people at the top making $1 million, and that guy, the guy got dinged, like, instead of like a $50 million bonus, he got a $20 million bonus.
Right.
But if he'd have been born in Compton, or if he would have stole cars or anything like that, I mean, California, 3 strikes, you're out. How many accounts did they open?
Right.
Tens of thousands.
Exactly.
And the poor people see that. The poor people see that the rich get richer, and they don't care about the law.
Yep, exactly. So with that piece, and then also, I mean, you're giving away a chunk of your profits every month to, I shouldn't say profits, you're giving a chunk of your revenue. So even if you're not making money, you're still paying your franchise fees. It can be an expensive model. So I think there were some franchisees who did really well at it, and they were in it for years. And you could, you work 4 months of the year, full time, more than full time.
Yeah.
And then the other, 8 months of the year, you work 10, 15 hours a week. It's a great model. And then there's the other half who just constantly cycle. People come in, they didn't make it, they'd sell their business to the next person, it just rotates through. So it can be successful and it can be not. It just depends on a little bit of your luck.
So are you gonna franchise this someday?
We've talked about it. At this point, we decided not to yet. We feel like we really want to stabilize the concept, make sure it's strong. But our biggest fear actually in franchising is losing the control of the ethics. When we built Keep It Cut, our goal was to build it in the model of a way we feel like the business should work that's beneficial for the customer, the employee, and the business, to help equalize some of those pieces. So we just started offering this year, which we're really excited about, full benefits for our staff. So we have health, dental, vision, short-term disability, life insurance. We have a matching retirement program. And really you don't see that other than a few of the large players. And so we wanted to make sure that we were doing that just from the get-go, because it's harder. The bigger you get, the harder it is to set aside monies for those programs. For our staff, we make sure that we pay them above minimum wage. We make sure that they're above that standard. And then we do lots of little things. Any way we can support our staff, we try to do that. So we work with a lot of single moms. So sometimes that means being more flexible with the scheduling, understanding that your kid gets sick and you have to leave.
So single moms cut men. I thought most all the barbers were men. Barbers,
but we only have like 2 barbers on staff out of our 25 staff. The rest of them are cosmetologists, and most of them are women.
But the customers all men.
Mostly.
Yeah. I don't know. For some reason, I just thought men always cut men's hair.
Yeah. No.
But you're saying a lot of that.
It's really shifted. Yeah.
You're saying that 23 of your 25
stylists
are women?
Are women.
See, I would have bet my house that they were all men.
Yeah. And that's because we're not a traditional barber shop, so we don't do straight razor shaves. And so for guys who want that true barber kind of rough, tough experience, we're not it. We're a little more soft. Where our ambiance is industrial chic. So it has the hardness, some hard lines, concrete floors, exposed ceilings, a lot of pallet woods. But then we soften it with nice fixtures, nice decorations. So it's that kind of in between, kind of you think of like the Chipotle of the hair world, where that fast casual, where you still have the nice contemporary model, but at a price point you can afford on a regular basis.
And where does this come from in you, that you want to provide benefits for your employees in dental and vision? And where does this come from?
I think both Josh and I grew up in families that really promoted the ethos of sharing wealth, of supporting those in your community. My father was involved in Kiwanis. Both Josh and I are Eagle Scouts. We went through the Boy Scouts, and so that instilled a lot of value of giving back, service, taking care of others.
Leave the playground better than you found it.
Exactly. And so it was important to us. I mean, we're not interested in making tons of money and being rich. That's not really our ethos.
So it's not really religion. It was more the Kiwanis Club and the Boy Scouts.
For myself, I think Josh might have a different opinion on it, but I'll just kind of speak to my kind of personal preference.
That is so cool, because I found it gross that my dad was 30 years old, and for 30 years you go to these, if you ever went to a practice management business deal for dentistry, the number one cost is employees. So they all say, don't offer 401ks or benefits, because number one, they're all girls, so their husband's got medical insurance. And then you'd see that same guy be against politically any national health insurance form. It's like, okay, well, if you say free enterprise should deal, then how come you don't have it for your employees? Yeah. So then someone says, well, let's have the government provide it. You're like, no, you're anti-government. Well, dude, pick one.
Yeah.
You can't say I'm against, and I don't want to get into the politics of that, but all I know is that when you talk about socialized medicine, I still haven't met one senior in Ahwatukee in 30 years who didn't like their grandma didn't like her Medicare.
Right.
So it's like all the grandmas and grandpas love their Medicare, but all their children say it's evil. And then what's the funniest thing is when you have an 80-year-old grandpa in your office saying he's against socialized medicine. I said, so you're going to quit using your Medicare? That's not socialized medicine. Yeah. I paid for that. It's like, okay, whatever. Enjoy your journey. But this is so exciting that you have, I mean, you kind of, like a... And funny, it comes from Washington, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Where there are a lot of companies that come from Washington kind of are more into the environment and their employees and all that kind of stuff.
It can be on the west side of the state, but we're from the east side of the state, so we're on the red side. So it's not the same ethos that you have in Seattle.
Yeah.
My family is, they're farmers from eastern Washington. They're wheat farmers, Republican, conservative. So it's a very different feel than the other side of the state.
Yeah, I grew up in Wichita, and pretty much every one of my friends that was born and raised on wheat, dairy, cattle, those farms were in the families for 100 years. I don't even know if you could come out of high school today and go buy a big cornfield. I mean,
even the local farmers, my cousins, their parents made them go out and get education outside of the farming because there's just not enough, even with their family lands. All of those are being gobbled up by these giant corporations who then lower their costs and push out the small farmers. So it's tough even for families who've been in it for generations. They can't continue doing it. My cousin would love to go farm. There's just not enough money for him and his father to farm the same farm.
Wow.
And yeah, so it's hard.
So who's your business role models when as you've gone from one? I mean, so you got to figure that 99% of all people will never have a business that goes from one location and then to two. So you have 3 businesses right now. Mm-hmm. So I imagine that's pretty rare. So who's your business idol, role model? Who do you read? Who are you chasing?
It's kind of interesting. I think growing up, my dad would talk to me about leadership, and one of the things that really imprinted on me, he said, look at all the leaders in your life, whether they're good or whether they're bad. Take the things that you like, get rid of the things that you don't. So I've taken that piece of, looking across the spectrum. I'll look at Warren Buffett. I'm reading his autobiography right now, and it's really interesting because he has a lot of pluses. He has a lot of minuses, and he fully admits to them. These are my downfalls of growing up and of how I led my business and my family. So it's been interesting.
So talk about Warren's minuses. I've never heard of any minuses.
Yeah. So he's a very straight-laced person. So as he grew up, he tended to not connect with people well. He was very abrasive. Because he was very rational, so he'd come to things with a rational argument and not have the soft side. So that was hard for him at first until he learned how to manage those relationships. So even with his family, he would come home at the end of the day from work and then sit down, eat dinner, and then sit down and be reading through the papers, going through his investment binders, not spending the time with the family that maybe he should have to develop those relationships there. And he acknowledged it. He said, I probably should have spent more time with my kids and more time with my wife, and I could have invested more in that. But his mindset was so one track on business and numbers and always staying on top of it that he lost that other component. So for me, I really took away from that is I need to make sure I have balance in my life.
So are you married with children too?
I just got married in January.
Yeah? Are you going to have children?
I'd like to, yeah. So probably the next year or so.
My theory was that the more time I spent with my 4 boys, I'd ruin them. Uh-huh. So I purposely spent no time with them just to save them.
Yeah.
But
yeah, so that was interesting. I really appreciate now from I guess in a business model or not, Obama has been a role model for me as far as how to lead people and treat people with respect and dignity. I've really appreciated that, and that he was able to still move forward, I think, on the business side, but do so in a responsible way. So he's someone I hold in high regard.
But now it's safe to say you hold in higher regard.
Right.
Well, Trump is
in a little different way. Yeah.
Rule number 1, you just can't ever talk about religion, sex, politics, violence. My gosh, I cannot believe just right here in Ahwatukee, he's got hardcore fans and hardcore haters.
Absolutely.
And, oh my God, that's just such a divisive issue. But man, that is wow.
And I can appreciate the frustration that many people have. At the same point, I think the piece that I take from him is he talks a lot about making the best deal for you. And I think the best deal needs to come from both sides.
Yeah, and then they're both sides. I mean, you sound like a very humble guy, and I think the key to business is be humble and hungry. And I've seen it with dentists for 30 years. The humble ones are listening to their patients, listening to their staff, and going to continuing education course and listening. The arrogant ones know it all. And even to this day at 55, when I have patients in there that are 65, 75, 85, 90, 95, mm-hmm. and they're telling you your political views, I mean, they have their thoughts too. And so much true. Like the last time I called 911, she was asking me for a description of the vehicle. And I'm like, why aren't you FaceTiming me? I mean, so the government is completely incompetent. It's like I can FaceTime my 74-year-old mother, but I can't 911, and it's so insulting that you're asking me what color the truck is. I mean, that's just dumb. Jimmy Carter, he started the Department of Education. Uh-huh. We were ranked like number 3 in the world. And then every year they just give it more money, more regulation, us down. Now we're down to like 38. And if you went to any of those guys, say, maybe you should close down the Department of Education and let all 50 states leave them alone so they can get back and focus on their kids, then you'd be anti-education.
Right.
And you'd be, he wants to cut the Department of Education. So he's, it's just like, my God, I want to get Sal to, how do you say his last name? Sal Decenio? I want to get Sal on here, but I don't know how anybody goes in that field. I couldn't think of a more horrible way to spend your day trying to get a bunch of wild, crazy monkeys with clothes on to think and be rational and get along.
Yeah. It's challenging.
It is so challenging.
Yeah.
Like I just go within my own family. Like I got two sisters that went into the Catholic nunnery straight out of high school. Do you think there's any way I could ever change any of their views, like 1 percentile?
Right.
I mean, it's just. I'd rather go out and try to find a unicorn. And talk to the tooth fairy. I mean, it'd be a better return on investment. So what do you want to talk about next? My God, we've gone 36 minutes. You've been a very interesting read. You're talking about Warren Buffett. Who are other your leaders?
I think other than that, I really look at kind of just a broad spectrum. So even on the basic level, my father really has been a high role model for me in balancing, work and personal life, and really a values-driven life. Taking care of the community and those around him, in addition to his work and family. So he's been, I think, probably the largest contributor to who I am, the way I think about the world. And then in the university system, because I was working with college students, I was doing a lot of leadership development, diversity training, leadership training. And so it was, again, working with those students to help them think broad perspective. So that was really helpful. I think as I did that, I was constantly reading and learning from other authors at the same time. And that was helpful to give kind of that larger perspective. I
think what you said was very, very profound, and kids think about, they think of leaders. I remember way back in the day, Steve Jobs was this iconic cult leader. Turned out he was really kind of a huge ass. You know what I mean? He had so many dark sides to him. But what you said is you went back to who you knew as a little kid. And I think that's more important, because you might read a book on leadership about somebody that if you met you wouldn't even like, and you're not like that. So you're you. Who was a leader to you? Like I remember, I grew up with 5 sisters. I played Barbie dolls till I was 12.
Right.
And I walked into high school, and this scary guy came up to me and said, "How much do you weigh?" And I said, 93. And he goes, "I don't have a 98-pounder. You're going to join the wrestling." I just did it because he told me to. Right. And I only practiced because I tried to make him proud and do a good job. So we connected. So you got to ask yourself, in one of the guys in our church, Dan Carney, started Pizza Hut. He had 2,000 Pizza Huts. And what I liked about him is when me and my buddy from school, we'd call him up. Whenever he was in the newspaper, we'd call him and say, "After school, can we come by and see you?" He never said no once. And I had to be like almost out of dental school to realize, why was a man with 2,800 Pizza Huts letting 2 punk-ass kids from Bishop Carroll High School come by, and his secretary would show him in, he'd sit down, and I was thinking back at some of the things we were asking him, so I have always made a religion out of availability. Yeah. Because you figure, I'm a dentist because the guy next door to me, Kenny Anderson, one time it just fell out of my ass, and I was like 6 years. I said, "Could I ever go to work with you?" He's like, "Sure." I said, "Well, what?" He says, he had a little blue Mazda. He said, "I always leave at 10 till 7, and I won't get home till 5." And I was out there the next day at 10 till 7 and rode with him to work. And so I always remember those things that you don't know what that little kid is thinking.
And that's really what you see. I mean, you can read all the books about all the cooks of the world or the Steve Jobs, but at the end of the day, you don't really know what they're like. What do they actually look like with their staff and their leadership internal? You kind of read the pieces, but your father, the person you see at work, your boss, your supervisors. And I think those are much easier, tangible ways to say, I wanted to take on that trait from that person. I like the way they had the conversation with their staff member, or the way that they praised them, or the way they chastised them in public or in private. How do you balance those two? And that was, for me, really helpful, because I think you can get specifics on that as opposed to these overarching, here's how you should take care of your employees, but really, what do you do? How does that conversation look? What do you say? And when the times get hard, do you really take care of your staff, or do you take care of your profits when that decision is put in front of you? What are you going to do? And those are, I think, more meaningful decisions to watch.
And the thing that is overlooked is 17% of America works for the the S&P 500, and they get all the coverage. But real America, 87% is small business, 25 employees left. You and I are real America.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that you know, they're always getting fed the news from what is, you know, Apple doing, and what is it's basically always Apple, Google,
right.
Facebook, all the known ones, but they don't cover small business, retail, and I think that's what I'm trying to do here. So back again though, what would you do to tell someone if he's always wanted to work for himself and start his own company, and he's somewhere along that journey?
Don't do it.
You say don't do it?
No, it's simply why I said do it, but just acknowledge what it's going to be. It's hard. I mean, the build up. You know, as we talk about opening 3 more stores, people say, "Oh, that's so great. You know, you're doing so well." I'm like, yeah, but it's taken 10 years to get to this point. We had 6 years of the tax office, another 4 years of this.
And how old are you?
34.
34. So you're still a baby.
Right. So it took us 10 years to get this point, but it's been a lot of. I mean, there was times where I'd get up, I'd go to my full-time job. You know, when we had the tax office, we both worked full-time. When we started Keep It Cut, we both worked full-time. So there's a lot of sleepless nights, hard work, stress. Josh, actually, my business partner, has hair about like yours.
So he's the handsome one.
Yeah, exactly.
A bald guy owns a Keep It Cut.
Because that first year of business.
So let's talk about that. So you just got married. He's married. Half of marriages fail. But marriage, when you have marriage, you have lots of glues that hold it together. You have physical love. You might have children, this, that. But when you're a business partner, you're not going to make love and have children. You don't have those glues.
Yeah, you just get all the fights.
Yeah. Well. So, what was your thinking there? Said, no, if I did this alone, I don't have to worry about that. Versus, why a partnership, and how do you work out conflict? I mean, what do you do when your partner says, I want to add this, or the locations or the stores, or you want to put up 3, but you want to put them all in Glendale, and he wants to put up 3 in Peoria? How do you handle those challenges?
It really is like a marriage. I mean, it's constant compromise, it's constant communication. We have disagreements. We talk through it. We come back around. Sometimes we have to sit and say, let's come back to this tomorrow. You know, even this morning, we had our call this morning, and we talked through just the challenges of him being in New York and working full time, and me working full time on Keep It Cut here, and for him feeling like, how does he stay relevant in our decision making? Because oftentimes I'm coming to him and saying, hey, choose A or B. You know, I've already narrowed the choices for you. Choose A or B, just to save time, because he doesn't have time to go out and do the research that maybe I can do. But inherently, I've made those first 2 choices. So now he's choosing between 2 of my choices. So it's not that they're bad, but it's through my lens and focus that I see it. And that can be hard for him in New York to stay relevant and say, where's my creativity being added into the business? Is this becoming more you? Does it represent you versus me? Or doing a podcast like this, you'll get my version of the story. The true one, of course. But where's his version of that story? And so it can be challenging. So we constantly come back together and say, we have to communicate. We have to say we're sorry when we're wrong, just like you do in a marriage. So we often come back and say, hey, you know what? Yesterday's call, I didn't approach that well. I responded to that inappropriately. I just wanted to apologize for that. Even if my opinion was right, the way I approached that was wrong. And we need to make sure that we always keep our relationship strong, because not only are we business partners, we're friends, and so we would hate to lose that over a business decision or something.
You seem like a very old soul.
A little bit.
How many children were in your family?
I'm the youngest of 4.
And are all 4 like you?
Yeah.
I mean, you seem like a little mix of Plato, old soul. I mean, you seem really philosophical.
I think being the youngest of 4, you watch your older siblings, as maybe you did as well. You do a lot more listening, a lot less talking, because they're the ones who have that dominant position in the household. So I think because of that, I have probably been more introspective. But all my siblings are fairly introspective as well. Yeah. But it's been fun. I would never give it up. Josh and I, we've through the hard times and the good times, it's been fun. But having that business partner for me, it's been critical. There's times where I definitely would have thrown in the towel if he hadn't been there to say, hey, let's just keep going. Just move forward today. And vice versa. I think there's days where he would have done the same thing. When we actually started Keep It Cut, it was actually just himself first. We had talked about it together, but it was more so we're talking about this idea that he's going to do. He filed incorporation paperwork with just himself. And it wasn't until after he did that he came back and said, hey, you know what? I don't know if I want to do this alone. Like, I could, but I think I would enjoy it more. I think there's more meaning to it if we do it together. And so then we ended up switching over and doing it together.
So the one thing you got to be hearing all this, because I know right now that like at Mountain Point and Mesa Community College and ASU, a lot of you guys are with your, you're out there having a beer and you're having this idea. You guys were friends for a long time. You grew up in the same city. Mm-hmm. Well, how old were you guys when you met?
6th grade.
Okay, yeah, 6th grade.
Maybe 11.
And when 11 years old. And how old were you when you started this business?
24.
So 11 to 24. Okay, I took algebra, trig. What would that be? So 13 years, right? So he vetted as part of 13 years, just like you wouldn't go on a date and 10 weeks later elope to Vegas and get married. So you vetted your partner 13 years. You knew if he lies, cheats, steals, all that kind of stuff like that. And I think a lot of the mistakes I see in dentistry is that we got 2 dental schools here. They come out of dental school and they'll the guy will say, well, I'll sell you a partnership. I mean, basically they meet. He's like, well, I'll sell you half my practice. Sign right here. Mm-hmm. And or I'll sell you the whole practice for $750 is the average selling price, $750,000. Or I'll sell you half of it. So then they think about it. She shows it to a lawyer and a CPA. Then she goes and buys half of it. And it's like, you've been on 2 dates with this guy.
Right.
Would you have married anyone on earth in that many contacts? I mean, it's just like crazy. And then then other dentists say, well, I don't want you working for me for 2 years, then changing your mind. So relationships are the most complex part of life anyway.
Yeah, choosing the business partner is hands down the most critical element of your business, I think. Because that makes or breaks it, the direction you go. It is critical. So I think having that business partner is crucial. A lot of times I'll talk to young entrepreneurs and they'll ask me, what's one piece of advice you have? And I always say, look at your business partner. You got to know them well. Know their strengths, know their weaknesses. Because everyone's going to have their weaknesses. You just have to know, are those things I can work with? And are your values aligned? Because maybe business-wise you're both heading the same direction. Josh and I could both be heading the same direction for Keep It Cut. But all of a sudden, I want to give benefits, and maybe he doesn't. Or maybe, he wants to give all of our staff raises. I want to give ourselves a raise. That value piece has to be in place to make sure that we're both aligned. So when we make decisions, we can make decisions together that are in line.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, So, do you? Are there any great companies you can think of that started with 2 instead of 1? Sears and Roebuck.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
What's the other one? Google, Sergey Brin, Larry Page.
Ben and Jerry's.
Ben and
Delicious
Jerry's.
Ice cream.
There was Procter and Gamble. Uh-huh. So there's a lot of partners started. Yeah. But what if when you were looking at a franchise, let's say they're not the creative type yet, they don't have this SAS model, reoccurring membership model, which I think is actually the hottest model out there. What would your advice be to young entrepreneurs investigating different franchises? I mean, they all know the obvious ones like Subway, but what advice would you give if someone was saying, I want to look at franchises?
When you're a young entrepreneur, a lot comes down to how much capital do you have. For us, the reason we chose the tax office is because it was low capital. You need some desks, some chairs, and some computers in a space. Easy. Do you have the technical knowledge to get into it, or can get trained? So we didn't know anything about taxes, but we knew that we could learn the tax piece. There was something that was in place that allowed us to learn that. We could go through a tax school. We could learn that piece. And then we looked for something that made sense to us. Taxes aren't going away. They're going to happen every year. If anything, they're going to get more complicated. Even with all the online ability to do your own taxes, there's still going to be a need for a tax preparer because there's so much complexity to the tax code.
And why do you think there's so much complexity?
It's just little bits, increments. Every little piece was put in place for one benefit, and it just adds up over time. And all of a sudden, you have 1,000 of these little, and trying to get them all to mesh and work together for one idea.
My CPA patients always say, if it's fair, it won't be simple, and if it's simple, it's not going to be fair.
Yeah,
that's what they always say.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's hard because everything's good for one person, but is it good for everyone? On a large scale, it's more challenging to do that. Yeah, so I look at those things. So that's why we chose the tax office. It was low capital. We knew it wasn't going anywhere. It seemed like a stable business. It made sense to us. and we felt like we could get a handle on the knowledge piece it would take to do it. And then when we looked at doing our own business, it was very similar. We're saying, okay, well, what's a business that isn't being done, or is a business that already exists but you can twist? We don't need another pizza place. There's 1,000 pizza places. Unless you can twist that a little bit, like a mod pizza or fired pie, where they took the pizza model and they flipped it. And they said, oh, what if we could do a pizza model, but you can come in, you can get as many toppings as you want on that pizza, and you can get it done in 5 minutes or less. Well, that's a brand new way of thinking about pizza. It's still a pizza, but it's brand new. It's just a twist on it. And that's what we did with the hair model. We didn't reinvent haircuts. Haircuts have existed for forever. We just twisted it a little bit and said, hey, what if you could do haircuts a little bit differently? And then you're not competing with everyone in the market anymore.
You're the only one doing it.
We're the only one doing it that we found. There was a couple other places that offer memberships that we found in the U.S., but mostly they're really prepaid models where you prepay a $80 membership a month and you get haircuts. Have you
ever thought about going on Shark Tank for this? Getting Mr.
Not.
Wonderful behind you.
I don't know. Maybe if we decided to really go big, go quick, if we wanted to franchise and just go all out. But our fear, again, is you go that route, and it's great for the business and for you profitability-wise, but can you build an ethical, responsible business that way?
Right.
That's the challenge for us.
Well, everybody that I've talked to about the growth, they say, the hardest thing is 1 turning into 2. And then it's that equal hardness for 2 to go to 4, and 4 to go to 8, and 8 to go to 16, 16 to 32. And within 30 divisions, you're at $1 million. And I remember Herb Kelleher talking about this, because there were all these states like Wichita, Kansas saying, we will buy you the $50 million Boeing 737 and leave it right here at the gate. That's how bad we want you to come. And he goes say, I can only grow my management team and my culture so fast. And I can't grow my growth isn't limited to buying 737s and finding airports that want Southwest Airlines. And people were very frustrated. After that company was 20 years old, it was still just in the Southwest. And everybody's like, God, when are you coming to New York and New Jersey? And he's like, it's the people. Yeah,
because otherwise, you're just another airline.
Yeah.
And he didn't want to be that.
And that's where I learned customer service from United now. When a patient disagrees, we just beat them. We beat them. We drag them out straight. We beat them till they'll comply. Yeah. Wasn't that just crazy?
No, it's nuts.
In an oversold seat. I mean, if remember that famous televangelist that had built 100 condos in some church vacation retreat, but he sold 200. And he was managed, so he oversold his deals, and he went to jail for that for 5 years. Oh, wow. And I was born in Wichita, Kansas, and that's where his after the divorce. It was the woman with all the makeup that when she cried, her mascara would always run. Jim and televangelist. Googled televangelist. Went to jail. Jim and Tammy Baker. Jim and Tammy Faye Baker. Jim Baker. But anyway, the airlines do that every day. Jim Baker. He went to jail for doing what the airlines do. They actually went to Congress to get the right. Because what I don't understand is, if I give you $100 and I buy a seat on your airline from Phoenix to Chicago and I don't show up, what do you care? It's less weight. It's more fuel efficient. I'm not going to eat a bag of peanuts. Right. But they're like, no, we're going to sell it to 2 people because we're thinking one might show off. And then they both show up, we'll just tell one to get off. And if he doesn't get off, we'll just drag his ass off. And, it's like, God.
The United one was even more interesting because it wasn't even that it was oversold. It was that they needed to put crew on there to get to another flight. Yeah. So they had to place. And so, I was talking to somebody about it, and they said, well, should they remove that one person? I said, well, I don't know. You either remove that one person, this whole flight of 150 can't get home. Now you're putting a little balance on there. Yeah. And they said, well, he was a doctor. Well, what if on that plane of 150 people, there were 6 doctors? Which would be better,
Yeah.
But it's either way, it's a tough. When you're on that plane, you expect that you're going somewhere at that point.
Yeah. But I got to say, he's talking about 2 things you got to remember. He's talking about he's an entrepreneur because he pioneered something. I mean, he took what Netflix is doing, or Netflix for movies and Spotify for music, and applied it to hair, and that hasn't been done. So that's totally entrepreneur. But back to franchises, I think the biggest thing is demographics. Like for instance, there's no Mexican food in Australia. They don't have a Chipotle's or a Taco Bell. I mean, Ryan and I were down. You couldn't find a burrito in Sydney. So you don't have to be smart if you're humble and hustle and can move. You can copy and paste franchise like the first person who takes anything like Chipotle's or Macayos or Taco Bell to Australia has 20 million people where you would think you're in Ahwatukee. I mean, there's no difference in Sydney and Melbourne. Sydney and Melbourne are each 4.5 million. The country's only got like 20 million. They just all live on one little strip of the coast. And back to some of these franchises, it's amazing. You have so many of the obvious franchises in Ahwatukee and Chandler and Tempe. Mm-hmm. But when you start getting into rural Arizona, the gas station's going to have the couple lowest hanging fruit. Right. But a lot of these kids, I think a big part of business success is, are you willing to move? Mm-hmm. I mean, could you, if you said, I really want to own a chain of restaurants and be worth $10 million. And I said, well, no, you don't, because you could move to Sydney tomorrow with all the cooks from Macayos and do it. I mean, unless you believe that Australian people are different than Americans, and when they eat a taco with cheese and a burrito and refried, they're just not going to like it. Right. And that's what you're going to find out is false all around the world. All 7.5 billion people, they all have the same taste and preferences, and they're pretty much all similar, just little minor details. And I think, but did you go to any franchise conventions or websites or read books on franchises or anything like that?
Yeah, we went through, there's listings, the top 100 franchises that give you, Inc. magazine, I think, does it every year. So that's a helpful starting point to just say, here's
yours in the Inc. 5, was yours in the top 100?
Mm-hmm. It was one of the fastest growing, it might even still be one of the fastest growing franchises in the U.S. They were just really spreading out quickly. So it's helpful because then you get an idea of, like, how much does it cost to buy in? What are the fees?
And what did it cost to buy in?
For a Liberty franchise at that time, I believe it was about $30,000. So we scraped together, credit cards and cash to do our first business. Even doing Keep It Cut the first time there, we were still on credit cards and cash because banks don't want to give you money when you're just
banks will only give you money. I remember when I tried to get a loan to start my dental office in 1987, and I wanted to get a loan, and she said, well, I could only loan you $10,000 if you had $10,000 in a savings account.
Right.
I said, why the hell would I want to borrow $10,000 if I already had the $10,000? I mean, it was crazy.
You got to have money to make money.
Yeah, and it was.
So we got really lucky, even with our expansion now. After 4 years, we still had to go. Most traditional banks, like a Chase Bank or Bank of America, won't fund us at this point because we expanded out. Our tax returns don't show that we have a lot of profit. They want to see profit on your tax returns. Well, we spent a lot of our profit on expanding out. So we went with a local bank, and local banks are much more helpful. So we went with Commerce Bank of Arizona. They have been amazing.
Where are they at?
They're based out of Tucson, but they have a branch over in Scottsdale. But what's nice with them is that they listen to your story, and they read beyond the balance sheet. They say, okay, well, here's what your profit and loss statement says, but I can see where you're tracking.
So you're saying more the national banks, like say Chase,
right?
They have tight formulas,
right? They're very you have to fit in this formula,
right?
They're not going to take any risk on you,
right?
They don't have to. They're the big banks. They can take all the good deals. And then your local banks, they can take some of those too, but they're going to look and say, well, I think.
Do you think Ahwatukee has a bank like that?
I'm sure they do.
Like this Commerce Bank?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Local First Arizona. They're a local organization, nonprofit that helps promote small business. They actually do a small bank fair once or twice a year, and that's where I met this one. So you walk around, you interview with a bunch of different banks. You just walk around and say, hey, I'm Jacob. I'm looking at doing this. What do you guys offer? Make the connections there.
Is there any way you could hook me up with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because this is just for Ahwatukee.
Yeah.
But I wonder, because you're right.
There's someone on the list here, I'm sure.
I would like to do that because I'm shocked at how many of like my 55-year-old friends can't get a credit card. Mm-hmm. And you're like, well, what is the deal? And they said, well, 4 years ago, and they explained it all to me. And I go, well, did you go in there and tell him? And he said, yeah, and he completely agrees, but there's nothing he can do.
Right.
Like there's nothing he can do. What the hell's that? That means these national.
That means there's too much regulation.
Yeah, too much regulation.
Or I shouldn't say too much, but there is a lot of regulation that they need to protect themselves. Whereas your local bank can make decisions on more one-offs.
Yeah, that is time. Yeah, there's the United States has 1 million MDs and 1 million attorneys.
Uh-huh.
I mean, and it's crazy. Yeah. Crazy. But yeah, if you could find a local bank, because I hear that all the time.
It's tough. Getting money is the toughest part when you're starting out, because you have no track record. We were just two guys looking to start a business.
Yeah.
Who doesn't want to do that,
Yeah. Any business book that you could recommend for a franchisee, an entrepreneur?
Yeah. Oh man, so many of them.
You said you read Warren Buffett?
Yeah, Warren Buffett's it's been really interesting. I've really enjoyed it. It's called Snowball. And it's his biography. And
HBO has the oh my God, we went over to an hour and 5. Crazy. So I went to Creighton in Omaha. That's where Warren was. He bought that house in I think like in 1950 for like $35,000, and he came to Creighton to business school. Let me tell you how dumb I am. So the business instructor was this little Italian man with really long silver hair. And just a total Italian, he was just a really cool guy. And he said, this Mr. Buffett's going to come on Friday night and in the dormitory, and if you go there and you take notes and tell me what you think of him, you'll get 10 points. And 10 points in that class was huge. And when you want to get in dental school, you really need to get A's and everything. So we all went, me and my 4 buddies who all became dentists together, Gary Isolde, Kerwin, and myself, and another. And I'm listening to this old man. And he's talking about his deal and everything. So finally I couldn't take it anymore. And I said, well, you're an investor, and the only thing you read in the paper is, back then it was the Nifty 50. Mm-hmm. And it was Xerox and, Kodak, and it was basically the high tech of the day. I saw that Nifty 50 later in the second bubble, which would have been Microsoft and Intel and Cisco and things like that. Sure. And he goes, I don't have any in the Nifty 50. He goes, if you can't take a number 2 pencil and explain to me what you're doing on a 5x7 recipe card, I'm not going to buy it. I only buy things I understand. And if you can't explain it to me on a 5x7 business card, you don't even know what you're talking about. And I just thought, this guy's dumber than a rock. And if he was so smart in Wall Street, he wouldn't be living in Omaha, Nebraska. He'd be in lower Manhattan. Right. And I just wrote him this scathing deal about how stupid he was. And now it didn't take me very long to figure out that my best idea should have been to give him my tuition money and then just go get a job at Taco Bell. And then today I'd be worth like $100 gazillion. But that was funny. So, I think
I really enjoyed his perspective is great. One of the other books I really liked was by Robert, I think it's Cialdini. He used to be a professor at ASU, a psychology professor. He taught at ASU.
Yeah. I got my MBA there.
Okay.
After my dental office was 10 years old, when you graduate in dental school, they don't teach you how to do any payroll, anything. So it was so overwhelming after I graduated in 87. By 1998, it was like 11 years later, I signed up for the Monday, Wednesday night ASU MBA program, and it saved my business. They didn't even teach you. I mean, you didn't know what any of the accounting was. There's all your physicians, dentists, and lawyers couldn't even read a statement of income. Mm-hmm. But anyway, but he taught on it. He's the legend. But his book was Influence.
Yeah, Influence. So I really enjoyed that one. That was great. And then a third one that I liked, especially for young entrepreneurs who are thinking about what type of business to create. I believe it was called Blue Oceans. Mm-hmm. But it talks about that idea of, everyone's in this marketplace. How do you find that edge? Like I said, we did with haircuts. We took haircuts and twisted it, and then talked a lot about that. Like, don't be just another business in the marketplace, because then you're competing against all the other businesses. How do you be something just a little bit different? You don't have to create your own brand new idea, but take ideas that already exist and twist them slightly. Netflix they didn't, invent movies. They took movies and twisted it. Said, oh, maybe you can do movie rental in a different way. And then they dominated, and Blockbuster, right out the door. So always kind of looking at those edges. I really like that book. So for young entrepreneurs, I always say read that one, because it kind of makes you think about, okay, so I'm thinking about business ideas. How do I evaluate them and say, is this a good business idea or not? Is there a market for it? Or is there too many people doing the same thing? Or is this something I think I could really make a run at?
Another thing with you kids, you see these dominant players and you think they're all that. But when you're 55 years old, it's amazing how many of them get run over from behind. Like when Blockbuster was all that in a bag of chips, nobody saw Redbox around the corner. No. And then when Redbox is all that. Nobody saw Netflix around the corner. So in 1950 to 2015, 88% of all the Fortune 500 companies are gone. So it's an 88% failure rate. So when you're laying there and you're thinking, well, I wish I would have thought of that, or I wish I would have had that idea. Some of the biggest legends that you see in business today will be gone before you get out of college. I mean, the mortality, I think it's been a 40% fatality rate just from 2000 to 2017. So 40% mortality rate at the S&P 500 since 2000. So just because, it's Netflix is all that thing. Like right now, take phones. When number one, I was 35 before this is available, and two companies owned the whole phone market. It was Motorola and Nokia. And there was nobody on earth that had a brain that didn't know they won. And then the next thing you know, Jobs comes out with an iPhone, and these kids today don't even know what Motorola and Nokia is. You know what I mean? So I mean, just so many instances of where you just never see that coming. So the competition is brutal, and right now they say it's Amazon. Amazon. If you look at what it's done, and it's since '94 to today, it's amazing. But if you look at what it's done just the last 5 years, it's kind of, other people have woken up to the fact that you can buy something online. Macy's is crushing it. Walmart's crushing it online. But if you look at Amazon's online stuff, just in like the last 5 years, they're starting to get their, if you just look at growth, Macy's is the fastest growing. Walmart, Costco, it's their head might have been in the sand for too long. But now I'm sure those CEOs' kids are saying, Dad, you should be able to buy your shit from Costco online or Macy's, yeah,
interesting.
It'd be interesting. So my deal is, you can get a franchise, but my best advice is just move. I mean, if you have your favorite franchise, and you're not, because what you did entrepreneurial is a very high thing to do. But if you're like, well, I can't think of anything original, kind of like music, you're a cover band. I can play all the great songs, I just can't write a great song. But just pick your favorite great song, and I guarantee you, somewhere on this planet, they need one. And the low-hanging fruit is Australia, or just travel. I mean, if you're in America, go rural. And if it's in America and it's rural, or you don't want to live in rural America and you want to live in urban, then go to another major city. Go to Scandinavia, go to Australia, go around the world. And every time I go around the world and I see some of these American franchises, I go in there and meet the guy, and it's some guy like you, and he went to some university, whatever, and he thought, I have two goals. I really wished I could live in Indonesia, and I really wish I could be rich, and I really think that. So I went to Indonesia. And here's this huge monster state capital, and he looked at those top 100 franchises and realized, hell, they didn't have 95% of them. So so that's what he did. I see that all the time, and I still can't believe Australia doesn't have Mexican food.
Interesting.
Crazy. So thank you so much for coming over the house. My God, we're like two kids in school. We went over 15 minutes. Thank you so much for telling us all about your journey.
Thank you.
All right.